it's because I didn't think a guard was needed. If you fool me twice, it's because I didn't learn the lesson, so it bears repeating. If you try the same play 3 times running, it's because you know what's coming, and you didn't come to lead, you came to purposefully be misleading. Democracy is dry, it's been a century bleeding. The husk is gaping open to the sky, out in the field where all the sheep just keep on circling and worrying and bleeding. They're waiting for the shepherd that they've tried to hide their faith in, but he's so appealing. They'd gladly give their fleece, it's such a freeing feeling that even when he leads them to the ledge and starts to urge them on, they're positively beaming. They were told that they were on their way to save democracy, so even as they plummet, they just gloat, they don't consider screaming. And halfway up the cliff, the shepherd's cozy little mittens wrap around the staff of shattered human hopes on which he's leaning. He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, "Not me, us," as he gestures to the oligarchs. He knows that if he runs, they're going to stop him like a stolen car. And he'll easily surrender because it bought a lot of time for laying mines in all the grassroots. Suddenly, the tiniest of movements gets you blown apart. Suddenly, you're in a play that's set on an election day, and voting for the fire, unaware you're playing Joan of Arc. Suddenly, the shepherd pulls the rug and slips a hood across your clueless mug, and everything goes zero dark. I'm gonna warn you once more before it's 2024 and you fuck around and find out who your heroes are. To take a step back from the herd, and you'll learn that you can spot who all the shearers are. If you really want to know the product that they're selling, I can take you where the mirrors are. If you think your voice is finally ready, I can tell you where the lyrics are. I hid them in a box I had to bury neath the cobble when they carpet bombed the promenade and raided all the street bazaars. Now all we've got's the marketplace, and you're too broke to even bother asking what the options for your treatment are. Suddenly, the raw debris of homeless human dignity will find it has 100 teeth for every badge and sweeper's arm. Suddenly, they speak in solidarity and each is armed. Suddenly, the sheep can see the shepherd for his truest form and all pitch in at once to help him buy the farm. And now it's zero dark, and all is calm and peaceful save the distant wail of sirens that approach beside the flames of dawn. Suddenly, the carrot's just a string that's on a stick, and all your movements make you sick because the prize is gone. Now we could go and flee into the forest low and meek, or we can exercise our right to feast and go and graze on Biden's lawn. 'Cause he's been sowing seeds that seep a toxin out to sap a bit from each of us and keep on leaching decades after Biden's gone. So regardless who they summon out of hell to come and do the job, it will not feel like Biden's gone. But in that time of hopelessness, you cannot trust the shepherd when he once again comes asking you to humor him his siren song. And it's cute that you can innocently, honestly assume that's just a symptom of a system that was wired wrong, and not the standard feature, basic function, primary objective of a mass hypnosis firebomb. You don't need to know the words to cry along. Someday it'll hit you like an officer who pistol whipped their ride along. Broke his jaw and kept his job and kept it moving right along. That voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the firearm. It's slow extinction by and large. It's Super Tuesday supercharged. It's all your futures, roots and all, just tossed out on a garbage barge. It's everybody dropping out to push the biggest oligarch. It's everybody voting fire, registered as Joan of Arc.
This death, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to another episode of Hard Lens Media. Shout out to our viewing audience here on Can TV. Hard Lens Media is streaming on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media and check out where you can find us at Hard Lens Media as well. Folks, we got ourselves a great show for today. Now, I want to be very clear. The 3 guests I'm bringing on are activists, also commentators, and are also involved in a lot of content and work with independent media and the activist community. And as we enter into the 2024 presidential election cycle, it's quite clear that we might be seeing history repeat itself. Biden versus Trump. I know we're stuck in an inevitable time loop. Now, the thing is, we've seen this play out before, especially before the big showdown in the primaries. And we have talked about this since we've been on this show and since we've been streaming on YouTube since 2017. And that is the election fraud that took place in the Democratic primary in 2016 and in 2020, where the DNC rigged it and denied Bernie Sanders the nomination. Now, as time has progressed, there seems to be now this overall hype surrounding two other contenders. Whether or not they can hold a candle to the movement that Bernie Sanders created is yet to be seen. Again, public support is key. Those two individuals are Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. They're vying for the 2024 Democratic nomination. Now, there will be no debates as it stands right now. However, in this, we have to remember that during that primary of 2020, for example, Bernie Sanders had a movement and let it die down. And many people, many of his supporters, just gave up on the Democratic Party. Now there seems to be this manufactured hype around Marianne Williamson as though she could be the next Bernie Sanders. But the thing is, it's one thing to create a movement and then automatically support the establishment candidate due to the fact that the DNC does have election fraud record and they have superdelegates. Republican primaries don't have superdelegates. So with that, I want to bring on my three guests. I want to give a shout out to Lucy, Greg, and Easy E. I want to thank all three of you taking time out of your day to join us this morning for Hard Lens Media. Now, as we get started, there's a couple things that should be brought up. And I think we have to look at your initial tweet here. And I want to pull this up here, Greg, because this has to deal with, in many ways, Marianne Williamson's campaign and also looking at this as well. And how it was hosted by Steven Donziger. So first and foremost, Lucy, I want to start off with you. How did you find out about Marianne Williamson's campaign, especially this event where you or all three of you were questioning her campaign and why she was running? Can we at least get an initial rundown of why you guys were why you guys initially wanted to go to speak to Marianne Williamson?
The event was posted on Twitter. That's usually how I find out about things. Mm-hmm. And actually, Greg can give you a rundown on what the event was like, because it was kind of shocking for him.
All right. Well, Greg, I have your tweet right here, and this is Steven Donziger. Now, we've talked about Steven Donziger before. He was unfairly put under house arrest by our federal government, thanks to the fact of the initial push by the oil company Chevron, due to the fact that Steven Donziger was defending the natives in Ecuador who got their whole community and environment polluted by Chevron, and here he is going to bat for Marianne Williamson. So, Greg, why don't you start off?
Yeah, so we're all local New Yorkers here. We're all located near, at least like somewhat near the Manhattan area. We found out through this through Marianne's Twitter. We were all in that area anyway, so we all decided to just come out and see what it was like, to see if she was going to answer some questions, see if we could ask her. I wanted to ask her about Nord Stream personally, but so we showed up to the event, and granted, like we were talking about Steven Donziger, and I was conflicted because of his previous work as well, and I respect a lot of his work as an environmental lawyer. But it was at this moment where, you know, he's hosting this Earth Day event. It's a bunch of PMCs and like hipsters and like rich Manhattan people like stuck together in one room, less than 100 people. And Steven starts speaking. Now, let me tell you, this audience is probably like one of the most cultish, like psychotic people I've ever seen. It's probably like pretty much all of them. I overheard other people talking. Most of them only know her through TikTok.
Yes, and there was actually a recent big hype up. I won't play the video. Well, maybe I'll just play just a few short seconds of it. But here, hold on, brace yourself, folks. Here, this is TYT talking about Marianne Williamson getting hype over TikTok. Just a side note, the Biden-Harris administration, as well as certain members of Congress, are doing everything they can to get rid of TikTok because apparently it's taking our private data, even though Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, all of them are already taking your private data. And just a side note, anything that you've posted on Snapchat is technically archived, so it doesn't go away.
To TikTok, man, she is blowing up. Apparently, her videos with the kinds of messages that you just heard in the video we showed you happen to be very appealing to the young TikTok users. And she has grown an enormous following on TikTok as a result.
So it's quite clear that there's this manufactured, or not manufactured, but an attempt to recreate what was the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020. Greg, I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because you were speaking to these people. And then Lucy, I want to get your thoughts on this too.
Yeah. So it was just strange. I mean, they gave Marianne a standing ovation. It was like she was like Mother Goddess or something. But Steven Donziger went up, and it was maybe just a couple claps. Like clearly, like they didn't know. Like most of the audience didn't know who he was going into this. What I got from that was a lot of these people weren't political. A lot of people weren't paying attention, and ultimately, like I felt bad. They're all getting sheepdogged, and they're all getting tricked into the same Lucy and the football over and over and over again. They just think it's burning again. So Steven says this, and granted, he's an environmental lawyer that was locked up by capitalists of Chevron, right? He says, he talks about the environmental crisis, climate change. Marianne is the one to save us in this existential crisis right now. And that's when I turned to Lucy, and me and Lucy were sitting next to each other in the audience. And we looked at each other, we're like, oh my God. Jesus Christ. And then that's when Lucy was like, okay, because Lucy wanted to heckle Marianne, not Steven. Lucy turned to me and she's like, okay, that's it. I'm saying it. I'm going to say something. I got to say something to Steven. He's playing dumb. I got to say something. And that's when I'm like, okay, let me get into the side. I'm going to record.
Go ahead, Lucy. Take it away. Because
I actually wanted to heckle Marianne because I'm a woman, and Marianne always plays the victim when she did that on RBN when there were like 3 men that were calling her out. She played the woman card, in order to kind of
deflect.
Like they can't object. So I was like, oh, I'd be the better person to heckle Marianne. But then Steven Donziger, he was saying all this shit. First of all, he was acting like the savior of the indigenous people of Ecuador, right?
He's so much more
kind of like smarmy upper middle class Manhattan environment, and then he was like, Marianne is the next savior. She's a savior, just like I saved the indigenous people of Ecuador. So I just like this kind of saviorism. I feel like we had to get over it, and it just came across as extremely smarmy and annoying. I didn't expect to hate Steven Donziger, but seeing him in person, he's a very different person than what I thought he was. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. So if anything, I don't mean to cut you off here because I want you to continue on because I do have the video set up. But before we do, this whole idea of saviorism, is it more in line of the Hollywood fantasy, the Hollywood imagery of Dances with Wolves or Last Samurai, Avatar, for example? I mean, I know it sounds funny, but when we talk about saviorism, because I've seen this too, where I'm saving the indigenous people, and I'm one of the good ones. It's sort of the white liberal fantasy of if I went back in time, I would help or if I was born in the Civil War era, I would help the slaves, or if I was in Nazi Europe, I would be resisting and helping the Jews escape from the Nazis. I mean, there seems to be like overall fantasy. Is that what the speakers were overall acting like? Because it's one thing.
That's exactly what it was. Like,
okay.
I'm sorry, but and to his credit, Steven has done a lot of good things.
True.
I'm not saying that you can't have a little bit of ego involved in what he's done so far and what he's accomplished, but it's one thing to have that drive your work. If you have a little bit of savior in you and whatever, as long as it ends in good things. But now he's trying to sheep herd us into having Marianne as our next savior, and that's where I was just like, forget this. Even RFK Jr. Even he is a more popular candidate objectively with the American public, and even he's not going to make it. And even he has a lot of questionable things where it's we really don't know how close he is to Joe Biden.
True.
We don't know if he's a Zionist. We actually don't even know that right now because his father was killed by Sirhan, a Palestinian. And maybe he has a grudge left over from that.
His son is in special forces. His daughter-in-law is CIA.
Kit, can I just come in here on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's pretty much with minor exceptions like maybe Cynthia McKinney and Ilhan Omar in her first 6 months in Congress, it is virtually impossible to exist in the Democratic Party and oppose Zionism. That's my take on it.
I understand. So now here's the thing. I have this video here set up where Lucy, you actually decide to interject. So I want to play this video here. It's just only a few short seconds, but I do want to talk about the aftermath because I know you were escorted out. So you explained why you decided to speak out, but I also want to talk about the aftermath. But here, let's play this video here.
Excuse me, Stephen. I'm sorry, but the Democratic Party is not democratic. They're never going to let Marianne run. Kennedy is running, and he's not even going to get past the DNC alive. You're wasting our time, and you're wasting our money. And so are all these other hipsters in here. And you are clueless, and you don't know what the you're talking about.
So real quick, before you guys speak out, add in the commentary, because here's the thing. Look, it takes a lot of courage to speak out against a popular crowd or a popular movement. It does take a lot of courage to even add in some criticism. But the thing is, look, for those of you watching this show, the DNC committed election fraud in 2016 and 2020. This isn't our first rodeo. Now, I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote. But if you're going to be voting in the Democratic primary, take into account that in 2016 and 2020, election fraud took place. Polling stations were shut down. People had to wait 8 hours, 10 hours in line just to vote. Lack of paper ballots. People were being kicked off the registry to vote Democrat. Again, Bernie Sanders, even if you were using electronic machines, sometimes people just couldn't even vote for Bernie because that's how crazy it was. There's documented video evidence of this from 2016 and in 2020. And so for those who are volunteering or supporting Marianne Williamson's campaign or RFK Jr.'s campaign, what are the candidates' plans in regards to dealing with election fraud? One last time, we're going to play this video. It's only 28 seconds, but it's amazing how quick people are blinded by hero worship.
Excuse me, Stephen. I'm sorry, but the Democratic Party is not democratic. They're never going to let Marianne run. Kennedy is running, and he's not even going to get past the DNC alive. You're wasting our time, and you're wasting our money, and so are all these other hipsters in here. And you are clueless, and you don't know what the you're talking about.
Okay, so there's the crowd. Now, obviously,
you look the sassy. Bye. I hate that.
So
bye.
I hate that so much.
Yeah, that was again. It's a tribal mentality. It's people who are stuck, who are incapable of seeing past their politicians, their heroes, their speakers, because everyone wants to be part of something, and I get it. But Lucy, you were bringing up some points. Again, I want you to elaborate a little bit further on the DNC, on what they did to a lot of progressive voters in 2016 and 2020, and overall what you were trying to tell these people. Lucy, take it away.
Well, I mean, I was just trying to come at it because there's a lot of things that I have to criticize about Marianne and RFK Jr., right?
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the point is, even if you like these candidates, we have to realize that our elections are fraudulent. There's fraud in every single election. So unless you're going to go out in the streets and demand a complete reform of the electoral system, paper ballots, and you show up to check every vote, in the community boards and stuff like that, this is not going to happen. I feel like I'm just tired. I'm not going to follow them to do another pipe dream campaign. I already see people falling for not just Marianne, but also RFK Jr. And I'm really fucking tired. I don't have the patience anymore for a whole other BS election cycle. But the funny thing is that it got shut down much faster than I thought it would. Like, I thought that they would kind of extend the primary campaign and then, you know, after 3 or 4 months, maybe have Marianne and RFK Jr. both endorse Joe Biden. But they already shut it down. They said, you know, we're not gonna, the DNC already said, we're not gonna do primary debates. That's it. And it only took 24 hours. They actually announced it before I went to this event, but it kind of became more viral afterwards. And it only took like 24 hours for them to say this. And Bernie Sanders practically ran to endorse Joe Biden. So all of this is over.
Correction. He didn't run. He teleported right there. Okay, so there you go.
He used warp speed.
Exactly. He opened a hole through space and time, put on his Joe 30330 for 2024 t-shirt and said, "Let's do this. Let's support my good friend Joe." Same Joe Biden who was against busing and desegregation. Same Joe Biden who worked with Republican segregationists to be against the civil rights movement. Same Joe Biden gave a eulogy to Strom Thurmond. Same Joe Biden who was browbeating and yelling down to Anita Hill. Same Joe Biden who was against a woman's right to choose. Hey, surprise, surprise, Roe v. Wade died under his watch. Same Joe Biden who voted for the war in Iraq. Same Joe Biden who supported the crime bill. And has never apologized, and Bill Clinton has. And if that's not saying much, and that's all I want to say about that. Same Joe Biden who sided with the credit card corporations to make student debt what it is. Big, brilliant moves there. Oh, by the way, same Joe Biden, and also added in Kamala Harris, who still have done nothing about the kids in cages. Remember that? That was a thing, folks. That was an issue.
Can I just add, like, to illustrate Lucy's point, like, when you're running in the Democratic Party, we have to ask ourselves, because, like, every candidate, in order to get DNC funding, you have to sign a contract that basically forces you to endorse the primary candidate, who at the end of the day is Joe Biden. So what's going to happen is that people like Marianne and RFK Jr. at the end of the day are just going to end up endorsing Joe Biden. That's all they're there for. And at some point we have to ask ourselves these questions, like what is the actual point here? Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure in most states you have to be a registered Democrat in order to even, like, vote in the primary. That's how it is in New Jersey. So,
and again, it just says a lot too about how quick people are easy to dismiss dissenting voices. Now, Lucy and Greg, you two have done a phenomenal job in regards towards calling this out and even getting this on film, because we do have to really call out these two other candidates, Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., for just being part of the DNC. Now, look, again, this is not praising or supporting the Republican primary at all, but the Republican primary, they don't have super delegates. They don't have as much of a control over their primary, which means, I'm sorry to say this, in 2016, Trump was more democratically elected by his supporters in his primary in 2016 than Hillary Clinton was, because of the thing called super delegates. Now, the thing about questioning these candidates, though, is there's always a pushback, or either that you get a bear hug. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because we have to bring up another video that took place here. Eazy-E, front and center, my friend, because you faced off probably against the most vicious attack dog ever in political history. I want to talk about Noodle Boy, Oodles and Noodles Noodle Boy, who was with the Marianne Williamson campaign. And apparently, out of the blue, Noodles wanted to tackle you because of some crazy reason. Now, there was a moment of violence on the Earth Day event hosted by Marianne Williamson, a supporter. This is from Get Indie News, Indie News Network. Please support them. They do great work. A Williamson supporter ran and tackled someone just for taking pictures and asking her why she supports Zionism. So much for the love crowd. So let's go ahead and play this video. And again, look, Fighting 101. You don't do what Noodles did, but Noodles got a lot of heart. And that's all I want to say. Noodle Boy, I love you, man.
And if you make it, I'm going to be honest with you. And it doesn't. Gary! Out!
There's more. There's more. I'm going to be professional. But I'm going to have fun with this, okay? Because here's what you don't do, especially if you weigh less than a wet paper bag. You don't go charging like this. Right? Now look, he's going trying to hug you or do something. Twist around. And here's the thing. You don't fight with your back, Noodles. This fighting 101. Listen to Nick from RBN. You need to get that training from Nick from RBN, okay? From Revolutionary Blackout.
I was actually going to bring him up because he's the one that confronted my friend. Encouraged me, has Palestinian ancestry,
okay,
to bring up the Zionist issue, but it was Nick and the other guy. What was his name? Rome, Unholy
yes.
Rome, that
yes.
confronted Marianne when she came on her show for the Zionism issue.
Yes, and so let me just play a little bit more of this.
Out.
I'm like hugging the wall, just like.
God damn, Easy E. Easy E, take it easy. You're gonna kill Noodles.
Another guy grabbed me from behind. There was two of them actually.
Okay.
It was a security guard.
Okay. Now, exactly what you were taking photos. You were asking questions. Okay, because that escalated quickly. To quote Ron Jeremy. Okay. Wait, not Ron Jeremy. Ron Burgundy. Ron Jeremy. I screwed that up there. Hey, we're having fun here. Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, right? That escalated quickly. What the hell? What exactly went down there? Because it's one thing. Somebody screamed, and then Noodles comes charging at you. Can you elaborate, Easy?
He was eyeing me the entire time, and then when I jumped up and asked my question, he just tackled me so fast.
He was right, 100%.
Yeah, he was looking at me. He was hyping up, talking to the other staff there, looking for any, he wanted to earn that internship. He wanted to earn that, he wanted to transition probably from an intern, from a temporary intern into a salaried, probably, propagandist for Marianne Williamson, and he was willing to do anything he could. I mean, some people thought that, just to throw this in there, some people thought that I was too easy on him. No, if he had done that to the wrong, I only, fought back for defensive purposes. But if he did it to the wrong, activists, they may have, gone further than I did. But I didn't have an even chance to even some of the other ones where Jose and the other guys, have actually. I think it was which one was it? One of the other ones. I think it was
you talking about
King Jeff, where you're able to actually sit there and ask a question for a couple of minutes. This guy just shut me down I couldn't even get one or two questions besides just the Zionism issue.
Wow. So in other words, they were trying to make sure everything was not a Q&A. They wanted to control everything, and then Noodles comes running at you. So I guess you wanted that internship position or either that. But Lucy, that same person who went after Easy E, is that the same guy who also escorted you out too?
It was him. It was him. Now that I'm looking at it, yeah, it was him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So there was a quick there was a really super fast rush to silence any form of criticism. So then what does that say to you, Easy, in regards to how Marianne Williamson will handle her campaign? Because when I was interviewing Marcel Dixon, who was running in Georgia for Congress, when he was bringing up reparations and the U.S.'s history, especially towards Black people, she snapped at him and had a very hostile back and forth conversation. There's always that quick silence of dissent. No one can criticize her or criticize her for the fact she's running in the DNC. Does that install any form of confidence? Or are we seeing the history repeat itself again of what we saw in the Bernie Sanders campaign of 2016 and 2020?
We're seeing history repeat itself. And let me just also add something else in there. to the conversation you had a little while ago about the DMC and the lack of democracy, to that there was that court case in 2016, I believe, involving Nico.
Yes.
I think he was a plaintiff, or he was involved in the case where it went to I think an appeals court, and the DNC argued that they're not really a political, they're a corporation or something like that, and they won the case by arguing that they're a private entity, and that they're not, kind of admitting that we're not really a democratic organization. We're not a union or an organization that I guess you could say has voter participation, or we're really just a private corporation. We can do what we want. I think that's how they won the case. I'm not a lawyer, but that's how they argued it, or something like that.
Well, you know what? The way I see this, especially with Noodles here, acting all heroic, or trying to really set a scene. What I do have to though is I have to give a quote and a shout out to Rome, because punch him. Fuck out. Don't let anyone ever run at me like that.
That would he would have made a mistake for doing attack with him. He would have.
Can you imagine? Oh my God. Rome would end his existence.
Someone would have to stop, like, no, Rome, let him live. Let him live. For the love of God, let him live. Let him live. But it's rather pathetic that we're seeing so many people get sheepdogged into the Bernie Sanders mentality of, oh, here's our candidate, they're going to go all the way, and then they're going to endorse the corporate candidate. Now the thing is, as we played in an earlier video, Marianne Williamson seems to be blowing up on TikTok. Now I wanted to, speaking of TikTok, because I think it's important that we see another perspective, because Lucy, you're on TikTok as well, and then of course here's you calling out AOC. Of course, here's the two videos that we played earlier of all of you at the Marianne Williamson event. And of course, this outstanding video of Jose Vega confronting, the Jagoffs who run the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Reuters, BS, DNC, and so much more. So overall, objectively, are you hoping to at least wake people up? I'm not being sheepdog, because the way I see things now is that we have to start building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C., because if you start spending your capital, your hard-earned cash on these politicians, you're going to get disappointed. Hope in one hand, crap in the other. See what fills up faster. Well, Lucy, take it away.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically what I'm hoping is some kind of independent movement. Now, the problem right now is I feel like people keep waiting for someone else to lead the independent movement, and that's the problem. An independent movement, you don't need a leader. So what I'm seeing now, for example, is people kind of maybe signing up for the workers strike back thing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but for example, they're not in multiple cities, right? Mm-hmm. So there isn't going to be an organizational manager for everything. So what we're trying to say, and at least in the New York area, it seems like more and more people are joining us, and you're starting to see different hecklers at these events, and they don't all belong to one party, by the way. I've known people that have done it that are from the Green Party, also libertarians, LaRouche movement, and unaffiliated, even former Democrats that are just sick of their reps. So I think people have to just kind of show up at the town halls, and it is a little bit intimidating because not that many people are doing it right now, but more people are joining, because it's basically even if you go with a few friends, it's you against a larger crowd of people that just want to sit there and be fed propaganda, and they're not really active participants in the thing. They're just kind of showing up to hang out. So that's a problem. We have to be kind of more involved and understanding that if you're going to show up at something, mm-hmm. Say what you think. And if you're not going to say what you think, then don't go. This is pointless. It's not democracy. And what we're seeing, I actually think it's very different than what happened in 2016 or 2020, because for all of Bernie's flaws, I do feel like he was a popular candidate that a lot of these kind of Hollywood elite types like Marianne Williamson and Susan Sarandon And I don't know if you'd call Steven Donziger Hollywood, but like, you know, kind of like liberal.
I could see a Netflix series being done about his
Right,
home arrest. You know, I mean, it's a story that will literally crap out money, and no, it should not have happened to him. But I'm rather surprised that from your first impressions that he seemed to be a little bit of a scummy, which
extremely smarmy, and I feel like what we're seeing is kind of a consolidation of liberal fascism, because if you think about it, in 2016 when Trump won and people showed up to protest at the Trump rallies, which I think is absolutely their right, it was the big outrage, right? Now, people are showing up at liberal rallies, at Marianne events, you know, Democratic rallies. If you show up to protest, you'll see that you very quickly get kicked out just as fast as you will at a Trump rally. And I think that's very telling. I feel like a lot of these rich liberals, they kind of are choosing sides right now, and they're choosing the establishment. And they're choosing candidates that they know are gonna endorse Joe Biden because they just like don't want to be bothered. But after COVID, you know, and after all of the shutdowns, and you know, like wealth inequality has exploded in the past 3 years, and things are just getting worse and worse. We have you know, possible nuclear war coming up. And these people just kind of want to sit down and endorse Joe Biden. It's like very clear that a lot of these Hollywood elite types that previously were kind of like okay with compromising with the populist candidate, now they're not anymore. They don't want to take the popular side anymore. So, you know, and they will kick your ass out. Now, it's kind of funny in this scenario because like Marianne Williamson supporters are kind of wimpy. Like this guy doesn't have the muscle.
Hey, don't you deny the heart of Noodle Boy. Hey, I'll go to bat for Noodles any day.
Yeah, but I mean, once they get used to this, they're gonna get like real security and stuff. And honestly, like we showed up at another a progressive event. It was for local candidates. It was like Tiffany Caban and Sandy for Council, who's a local kind of progressive rep in New York City. And one of the progressive people that were running for progressive office, she personally followed me around the room and tried to muscle me out. And she was a politician. So the progressive representatives are so pathetic. They not only endorse Chuck Schumer and you know, like all of these centrist corporate Democrats, they also have to do their own security. So they're so much more pathetic than Republicans in this sense. Like the progressive representatives, they are kissing Joe's ass. And not only that, but if you show up to talk to them or to protest them, they muscle you out, and they have to run their own security because they're so like the establishment doesn't care about them either, and they don't provide security for them. So it's just like so sad for them overall. I would never try to become a progressive representative to do my own security. Like this is so stupid. So you know, I just can't. I can't handle it anymore. And you can look her up if you want. Her name is Sandy for Council. She personally like followed me around the room, and then she kicked us out. But she was actually physically hostile to me. It wasn't like a light thing.
Speaking of hostile, Easy, I want to return back to you because, again, Lucy, look, I covered your work, and I've had you on the show, especially when you called out AOC. And what I do find funny about that, just to harken back to that outstanding interview that we did, you were obviously speaking Spanish as well, and you did mention that AOC does a struggle in understanding or speaking Spanish just a little bit. She puts on this whole show.
A lot of the Dominicans that I know actually say the same thing, that her Spanish is more Americanized. It's not, you know, it's like her second language or something like that.
Wow, that is Jesus. So Easy, real quick here, because this is something that did get mentioned. People were saying that you were being hostile, that you were shouting, you know, and obviously this is somebody on Twitter, just a random person. Could pick a better name though for themselves. Transient anus. Well, whatever. He shouts like he's about to do something and has something in his hands and is disruptive at an event. This wasn't violent. He shouldn't have done that. This isn't a Q&A. It was an event where she was speaking. But then again, if we look at this video, look, everyone has every right to ask a question. It's the First Amendment. Go ahead.
And another account, there's a second account that was associated with Mr. Anus, I guess we can refer to him as Mr. Yeah. So they first claimed that I had a weapon, and then or insinuated, and then the second one they said that they used the same argument they used where Hakeem Jeffries used against Jose, where they said that he made a lunge towards Mr. or Rep. Jeffries. They claimed that I was moving forward, as if that's like basically, kind of like what the NYPD will use is like a way to kind of, push, instead of just, like protesting, they'll say that you assaulted an officer. If you touch the officer, it's like basically a felony. Like where
Bernie had hecklers too. They never no one handles protesters like this.
No,
they try to.
Stores, you can't tackle the
and I don't know, and those accounts could be random. They'll claim they are, but that if you look at that Transanus's profile page, like 80% of their or more of their posts are all promoting Marianne Williamson. So there may be that they may have some kind of affiliation with their campaign. Maybe they're not like.
You gotta love the hero worship. So here again, and this video right here kind of knocks out any kind of proof again of their statements of you being violent. You're asking a question and you have a camera. So hey, one more time with Noodles. Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network. You have a new apprentice. You must train him.
And if you make me your president, I'm going to be honest with you. And if there's some something to look at,
So again, it's nothing of that nature took place. Hell, if anything, Easy, you had noodles in your hand. You literally had noodles, good old noodles in your hand. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, again, it's smearing people, activists, organizers who are trying to speak truth to power. And again, Lucy, here, I want to pull up this tweet here again, too, because it does shine a light on who Marianne Williamson is. She has associations with the establishment, with the Clintons. Here she is, at one of the attendees. Chapter 1, spiritual advisor aided First Lady's search. Marianne Williamson, right there, author of Return to Love. Well, the fact that, again, there's a quick dismissive of anyone that would challenge her, from Marcel Dixon to anyone else who wants to call out her integrity of her campaign, there's always that pushback and silence. So for all three of you, starting off with Lucy, overall, what's going to be the end result of this campaign? More disappointment, or, oh my goodness, will it be the final unicorn in the rainbow? Somebody could actually beat the DNC establishment. Your thoughts, Lucy, starting with you.
Well, I think we're just seeing, people like the Democrats, they'll criticize, a lot of these evangelical churches for sheep herding people to Trump, for example, to the Republican candidate, which they're right to do. But then they engage in the most cultish behavior themselves. They claim to not be religious, and they're falling for this spiritual hoopla combined with, they say they're atheists and they're not in a cult, but they are in a cult. It's very clear. Everybody just kind of sits there dumb, with their mouths open while they kick out dissenters. And then they claim that they're that the Republicans are the ones that are in a cult, and the Republicans are. So it's just both sides are cults. And that's it. We're never going to get out of it until those of us that aren't in a cult just say, look, I don't care if you used to vote Republican or Democrat or independent or non-affiliated, whatever. We have to find a way out of our problems. These are both cults. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to do it? I don't know, but I really feel like more people should show up to these events. I see it happening more in New York City. And we have lots of big cities in this country, so we could at least start with that. If anybody that's watching could show up, like Jose's actually doing trainings on how to heckle, and I like this because it's very decentralized, and I feel like decentralized things work. Like when you start to try to get everybody to do the same thing, it doesn't work. But the point here is to just show up to your local town halls, whatever, and say what you think. That's it. Like, and
Done deal. Done deal. And that makes perfect sense, because the thing is, we have to speak out. Enough of this hero worship. Enough of spending your hard-earned money only to see the candidate of your choosing endorse a neoliberal corporate sellout. Greg, I want to get your commentary, and then Easy will be closing off with you guys, and then where we could find you guys on social media. Greg, take it away.
Well, I feel like duopoly politics kind of thrives off of hero worship. I think you kind of like need these like antithetic, like these like figures of this captain's mommy and daddy figure coming to save the day. I think ultimately, if people start to realize that we have a lot more power in numbers and a lot more power than we think that we do, instead of just handing it over to these egotistical, narcissistic maniacs and psychopaths who want to like things like what Lucy does, like Jose does, and like disruption and like actual on the ground activism. You'll be surprised about like what kind of things you can, what kind of annoyance you can bring to the establishment. As long as you're a disruption, as long as you're a threat to them, I think that ultimately you're doing a good thing. Agreed. And you know what? Here's the thing. We do need people to speak truth to power. And look, I'm going to call you guys the dauntless few, because I've seen my fair share of activists. And what angers me, what enrages me, is that I remember in 2017, 2018, at the height of the Trump presidency, so many people protesting Trump here in Chicago, meeting up at the Daily Center or somewhere else downtown, then marching, being sheep herded into a caged area set up by the CPD, the Chicago Police Department, across the river from Trump Tower. So they're not actually protesting in front of Trump Tower here in Chicago. They're across the river from it, being put into a cage and being told how they're going to resist. That's not resistance. And look, controversial statement here, but Malcolm X would never lead his followers into a cage. Okay? I think it's safe to assume, not only assume, it's a fact, Malcolm X would never, ever do that. Dr. King would never, ever do that. And so people need to start breaking away from hero worshiping politicians, because all these politicians are scumbags. They all are. George Carlin was right. So Easy, closing off with you.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me on, Kit.
But I was going to ask you a question, though.
Oh.
Has Noodle Boy reached out to apologize to you? And
no one from the the Williamson campaign has apologized. But I also wanted to throw something else out there that you brought up, an important point a little while ago. Those anti-Trump protests that took place, right around the time he came into office, a lot of the don't. I don't want to mention George Soros, because that's kind of like he's just one very rich donor. But a lot of those protests, like there was the I think it was the Women's March here in here in New York and in DC. A lot of them were funded by the Democratic Party. They had Democratic. They had, Hollywood and the usual power behind the Democratic Party. There was another guy, Brooklyn Dad. I don't know if you knew who he was.
I remember him.
Yeah, he was paid. I think it came out. He was paid $80,000 a month for promoting the Democratic positions, and that's where the resistance ends. Can you really, if you're funded by these individuals, if they're behind your protest movement, if they're behind your candidacy, can you really betray them? Can you, it's not Game of Thrones where you have, allegiances basically, turn on each other. It's something where, can you really, if you're being funded, you have to really cut all ties to the Democratic Party or any party, whether it's, the Libertarian Party or the the Republican Party as well.
Wow. Again, look, folks, we need to step up. So as a final note, I know all three of you do collaborate and do great work with Indie News Network, Get Indie News. Where can people follow you guys online on social media? I already shared your TikTok, Lucy. So for your social media, where can people go? Lucy, Greg, Easy E, you're going to be closing it off. where can people find you guys on social media? Because you do phenomenal work, and I invite you guys to come back on the show any point in time, and I'm more than happy to collaborate and do work with Get Indie News, because now more than ever, we need independent media.
Well, you can. I really want people to follow my TikTok account, Blue Moon Red Wine, and the reason for that is that I'm starting to notice that a lot of these Democrats are pushing a lot of marketing on TikTok to like kind of apolitical people that are just watching dance routines and stuff. So if you could follow me there and retweet the videos, that would be really helpful. It's
all right.
Blue Moon Red Wine on TikTok.
Blue Moon Red Wine. Be sure to follow her on TikTok. Again, phenomenal work. Greg, where can people go to follow you on social media?
So my my tagline is Big Mad Crowd at pretty much everything, both YouTube and Twitter, and of course, subscribe and like Indie News Network, Get Indie News on Twitter. I started a new show streaming on Mondays at 9.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And here is Get Indie News as well. Look at this. We just got a copyright strike for COVID misinformation. So any support would be great. Oh, no. They're not doing that again, are they?
Oh, yeah. We posted.
Here we go again.
We posted the Jimmy Dore and Comrade Misty TNT radio, and it got taken out immediately.
Madness and stupidity. And then Easy E. Where can people go?
Oh, kid, I'm not on social media at the moment. I did have some accounts a couple of years ago that were shut down, but I'm not on. But once I create an account again, I will let you guys know.
All right, done deal. And look, here's the thing. After watching that video, first of all, I have to commend all of you on how you kept your composure all the while speaking out against the herd, against those that are just easily brainwashed into voting for Team Red or Team Blue. Now more than ever, we need people to speak truth to power. And it takes a lot of courage to go against the tide. Look, I get that everyone's concerned about this election cycle, about Trump coming back. But don't let Trump derangement syndrome or being part of the two-party system get the better of you. Because we need people like Lucy, like Greg, like Eazy-E, like Jose Vega, and like all of you to realize and wake up that we're not all different. Yes, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, we're all have different points of view and perspectives. Yes, we all have different skin colors, worship differently, vote differently. But the top 1%ers, they dance and drink because they believe we are weak. It takes courage to speak out.
They all say they're friends when they're running against each other.
That is true. And again, now more than ever, we have to fight for that better future. Lucy, Greg, Eazy-E, thank you so much for spending your morning here with Hard Lens Media. We're going to be continuing on with the rest of our main show on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. Shout out to our viewing audience here at Can TV. My name is Kit. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.
Thanks,
care,
guys.
folks. No
Thanks,
problem.
kid.
All the best to you
Appreciate
guys. Take care.
People still owe money. People still owe money. People still owe money. People still owe money.
It looks to me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home. Home.
Right in the center where the haves meet. You were proud of incremental half speeds. You were getting down in the AOC dance line, hands tied, nodding to the backbeat. You'll Secret Service dive in front of any representative alive, being asked for the very bare minimum. And you'll turn into that same kind of hard right villain you detested should we mention they could ever muster maximum. Cause liberal denial's such a lofty ataraxia, where morals take a back seat, not up in the cab, but in hidden panels made by federal human traffickers. If you trust the autopilot, then you're just a sleeping passenger, passively accepting that it isn't us the bastards serve, making peace with all the evil walking on this rancid earth, seeking unity with those who bound your hands at birth, glancing up at fascists on a bloody dais thinking they just need a push. Not a holy man, but I'm praying for a burning bush. Yeah, I know you'd love to look away, but love, you need to look. There are many massacres the country manufactured that will never make the books. Now here's your fucking hook.
It looks to me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home.
Home on the range of excuses. Justify some fracking, water down pollution, paint a fresh coat of bipartisan charm over backroom collusion. Your consent is being manufactured by illusions, marketing executives in federal seclusion, working day and night to keep you just the side of lucid, and too beat down for calling out abuses. So fuck all these progressives who can speak on revolution once they empty all your powder out and spit on all your fuses. I prefer to judge a leader not by quality of tweets, but the six-figure book deal she chooses. Donors he betrays, and donors that he'd gladly take a bullet before he refuses. Slogans he reuses, buzzwords he produces, and he spews like mucus. Well, two can play at that. So here's the inner dialogue of every time I snap, and it's fine-tuned to ruthless, and saying politics are useless. Just a bunch of loose lips tweeting cute shit, power suits, taxpayer booze trips. Bunker at the ready when the shoe flips. And there will be no news clips. There will just be...
People still owe money. People still owe money. No.
It looks to me as though you learned to love your prison. I guess you'd say you made it your own. Who knew that freedom's such a difficult decision? I bet you finally feel like you're home. Home.